a minimum viable product. MVP actually means minimum viable product. So it's the simplest version of a product that delivers value to users and allows you to learn quickly, right? Like the simplest version, right? So if we know about and the purpose of an MVP is to validate the assumptions that we have, to reduce risks, to test if what we are thinking can has a market value, right? Because the idea that we usually have in our head is that this problem that we are seeing, we think that everybody is facing the problem. But that is just us thinking in our head as entrepreneurs. Now, how do we actually validate that this problem is a real problem and has a market? We can use an MVP to do that. Now, if we know about the product Dropbox and Airbnb, right? If you see my images, sorry, if you see the images at the side, this is the first version of Dropbox and the first version of Airbnb. When Airbnb started, they were calling it Airbed and Breakfast. It was just two designers who decided that okay, they were going for a conference, right? No, they had a conference in their city, and people were coming to attend that conference. So they decided that okay, they will rent like affordable hotel rooms or affordable empty houses that are around them and just buy air beds, these air mattresses, and they give you breakfast. So you just come there. If you don't have like enough money to go and rent a fancy hotel to stay there for the duration of that conference, you can just come and rent those. There are small rooms and apartment spaces that I've made that put air mattresses down and they give you breakfast. So you spend your conference there and you leave. So that's how the idea, that's the MVP for Airbnb. Right? They started with air beds and they were giving people breakfast, very affordable. Before Airbnb is what is today as a leading company for those that are leasing houses. Dropbox as a whole started with them just producing a video showing how people can save devices, you can store, you can sync, and you can share files across different devices. That's how they started. That's the MVP version. They did not even release the product to the market. They just did a video and they sent it out there to see how people are going to react to it and if people will really buy into this product when they finally launch it. And when that happened, that's when they realized, okay, this our product is what people are. It fits the market because we have a lot of engagement to it, and that is where they started building Dropbox like a full-fledged product. So that's what MVP is all about. So number two is not an MVP actually. So an MVP, like we said, the minimum viable product. So if you look at number one, right, a landing page for signups, that's an MVP. A landing page for sign up. You just create a landing page. Only you know what is behind a landing page, and you tell people that okay, this landing page is for this app, and you tell people to sign up, or this landing page for this product, and you tell people to sign up. That's your MVP that you're launching, and you see the number of people that sign up, right? If you look at what this most the big tech companies do when they're about to launch a new feature, I don't know if anyone else is using Cosmo, or if you look at recently what Mantel did with Startup Cameroon, right? What they have done. Mantel has launched an MVP called Startup Cameroon, where startups go to the website and they fill a form of interest, their startup names, what they do, the the name of the founder, the email, what the startup is about, and the name of the startup. That's an MVP. Now they're trying to see if people can buy into the idea of them having a database where people can come go there and see details of all the startup ecosystem in Cameroon. Now, based on the campaign that Monday has launched, and based on the number of people that will interact with that campaign, they will now decide if okay, if this product, Startup Cameroon, is really market fit, and if it's something that we can really build, we can build an extensive platform where we will now open it to the public where people can go there and do other things. So right now, the simplest feature that they have there is just a form where people go there and fill it and submit their information. That's an MVP. Now, if you are building, number two says a feature complete app. That's not an MVP. So a feature complete app is like okay, yeah, you have done everything from start to end. Number three, clickable prototype. An MVP can just be your Figma file that you have designed and you have done your prototype and you send it other people to test and you get feedback. UX means user experience, as we know, right? And user experience is not just about the UI. So most of all, we just think that when I talk about user experience, is the fact that your app looks nice, it has great colors, it has nice icons. No, user experience about the feeling, right? The flow, how easy it is for somebody to use your service, your product, or your app from start to finish. Now, UX ensures that our MVP are usable. Usable means that it's easy to navigate and understand. If I give you my app or my product to use without me explaining to you, how easy can you use it without me telling you anything, right? Um, I like to use the example of WhatsApp. Today, everybody uses WhatsApp, and you don't know who is the customer service of WhatsApp, or you don't know any customer service number to write to WhatsApp that I'm trying to send a message to somebody, or and I don't know how to go about it. That is because WhatsApp is so simple. It's very usable, right? You don't need any more explanation to understand how to send a message on WhatsApp, or how to send a voice message, or how to send a video message to somebody. Now, the UX makes our MVP desirable. That means users always want to come back to it, right? Users always want to come back to it. Now, desirable means that your product is such in a way that the first time you launch, you have a certain number of people that are excited about it. They say, oh, this is a great product. I think we're going to use it. If your MVP is not desirable, then we just ends at this is a great product, yeah, good job, great work, continue the work you're doing, and it ends there. But now, if it is desirable, people will give you all these accolades, and though you still have a lot of people that will come back and they'll be like, okay, when is this thing going to launch? Because we can't wait to start using it. Now, UX makes the MVP feasible, like it can be paired with available resources, right? Because most of the time we are startups and we have limited resources to work with, right? And that is why we always start by building an MVP. And in UX, it makes sure that we use the little resources that we have to build something that is great. That is where UX comes to make our MVP feasible. And how does it make it viable? Viable means that it has to fit the market and our business goals. Like I said, the goal of all of this, of all what we're doing, the goal of you building an MVP is to make money at the end, to see if the problem that you're trying to solve can generate income in the near future. So when we apply UX in building an MVP, it makes us to early understand that whatever we're trying to build or what we're trying to do can fit the market and we can generate income from it in the near future. This is a diagram explaining how we can build MVP, right? What does an MVP design include? We incorporate design thinking plus lean UX and agile methodology, then that will give us a successful MVP. The reason why we're using all of these to have a successful MVP is that the process of us building an MVP and the design thinking process is not it's not a start to end process. It's not a straight line that you say it starts from point A and ends to point B. No, it starts from point A, goes to point B, and comes back to point A, goes back to point B. So it's like it's a cyclical process, right? There's no stop in it. You get the needs, you do your research, you prioritize, you do your hypothesis, you start building, you get feedback from what you have built, and from the feedback that you get new ideas, and the cycle continues again, right? That's why if you see it starts from needs, because you as the entrepreneur, you have the thing that they say you have thought about a problem and you think there's a need for a solution to this problem, right? That's what we call a need. Research now is that you go in and you start doing a research to see if people are actually facing this problem by carrying out research, interviewing people. After you do your research, you come now to prioritize. Prioritize means that you look at the data that you have from research and you see, okay, based on the research and the kind of problems people are facing, I think this is the kind of solution I can use to fix to solve this problem. That's where we have the go-to concept. Now, when you have your concept, now you can start your hypothesis, meaning that, okay, you can say, okay, from the different um, issues that people are facing based on my research, I can solve this one. I can start by solving this one, right? You can pick one thing inside the so many problems that you have to start solving. And when you start with that. You start building a solution around that problem. Now, when you build, you send it quickly for people to test it to see if this is actually working. You get feedback, and for feedback, you have new ideas. New ideas, it comes back into this other cycle where you still research, you prioritize, you have a concept, you have a hypothesis, and it goes like that. So it incorporates design thinking, lean UX, and agile. Agile means that it's fast. There's no time. You don't need you don't need one process to finish before you move to the next. No, one process gives you an idea of what you can do to the next. And when you go to the end takes you back to the beginning. In that way, you're also listening to your user. That's why the process of feedback is very important. Lean UX is a UX principle that most design teams use, right, to quickly design and ship products out there. Like the name like the name itself, lean means fast, right? There are so many UX principles out there. There's a design thinking, there's a human-centered design, and there's lean UX. So lean UX means that you do research. From the research, you generate ideas. From ideas, you wireframe. From wireframes, you can from wireframe you can move straight to people start developing it, or yeah, you move to development straight, and you test. And when you finish testing, you get feedback. You take the ideas that you have gotten from the testing, you come back to research. So that's lean UX. So let's start our step one, right? Like if we look at this diagram, talk about needs. Now I'm going to go through the design thinking process, which we are going to use to build MVPs. And the number one thing in design thinking in UX is understanding users. Like I said, whatever we're building, whatever problem is in our head that we want to build, at the end of the day, we're not the ones that are going to use the solution that we're building, but we want people to use them and in turn generate income and buy them, right? So the first thing that we always have to do is to understand our users and what are the different methods that you can use to understand our users. You have to carry out interviews, right? Carry out surveys. Like if you want to start building something, you don't just assume, don't just base on your assumption that okay, no, I want to do this thing because I know that this thing is happening. We are going to build it this way. When you do that, by the time your MVP reaches the market, you realize that nobody wants to even use it or nobody is even signing up to it. That's because all the solutions that you have built is based on your own assumption, but not on what users are telling you. Like I said in the beginning, we're not designing or building for beauty. We are designing or building for behavior change. Like I said, we have diverse kinds of people in this world, and they have different behaviors, they have different things that interest them. And the best way for us to understand them is to do research. So if you want to start building a product, first thing first, you have to do a research. This problem that I say I want to solve, how many people are facing this problem, right? So that's why you're doing interviews. You ask people a series of questions. And from that questions, you realize, oh, okay, out of, let me say, 10 people that I sampled, that I did an interview with them, six to seven or eight of them are facing the same problem. Then you can say, okay, now this problem is a valid problem. I can start like putting more resources to generate solutions to this problem, right? Now, observations means that this problem that I want to solve, what are the existing solutions that are out there how are people trying to solve this particular problem? Like we all know, any idea that is in our head, that maybe there's some kind of solution out there that somebody has implemented. Maybe we don't just know about it. That's why it's always good for us to do research at the beginning. So if we have thought about a problem, you also have to carry out research. How are people trying? What is the current solution to that problem right now? So you do your observation by carrying out surveys and polls, right? That's where you gather all of this data. You do interviews and you do observations, I do surveys and polls by gathering all this user data. All of the data that you get from this particular stage is what is going to help you to build an MVP that people are going to like. If you skip this stage in building an MVP, then there's really you go ahead and face serious issues because They are going to be like MVP that people is not going to be desirable, right? It's not going to be usable because based on what data are you using to build the solution that you're building. The only place where you can get data is by talking to your users, talking to potential people that you think that they can use what you are trying to build, or they are facing a problem that you are trying to bring a solution to it.
Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to understand for these steps, one about understanding users.
Yeah.
Is it when you have an MVP already, or you just go and start interviewing maybe a potential users talking about your idea or your project? So that's a question I want to understand. Is it when you have MVP already, or is it before?
No, before. So this process is you can this process is in two ways, right? Even when you have the MVP, oh no, in fact, when you already have the MVP, at that point in time, that MVP is serving this stage at the same time because people are going to be using your MVP and you're also gathering data from there. Now, this stage also comes before you even start building the MVP. This is like the stage one of you building your MVP. So you have just the problem is in your head. You know that okay, this is a problem, this is a potential problem that exists. But how do I validate that this is an actual problem that people are facing before you even want to go and build an MVP to solve that problem, right? So you have to gather data, you have to do interviews, right? You have to send questions out there, questions that we try questions about the problem that you are trying to solve so that people should answer that question for you that you understand that, okay, this is my problem that I'm trying to bring a solution to it. People are also facing this problem. It means that this problem is a real problem, it's an actual problem that I can bring a solution to it, build an MVP for people to use, then later on make money from it, right? So this stage, like I said, is the beginner stage. You cannot skip this stage, right? In everything that you're doing, even in companies that are well established that have built the products and who are already using it, they still gather they still understand their users from the beginning because it is this particular stage that gives you data. Like I said, it's very important. It gives you the data to know if I have a market out there for this solution that I want to build to this problem. Now, because how do you know that there's a market for the solution that you want to build if you don't go and do research? So this stage is like it's the first stage which you have to do even before you start building the MVP, right? And there's one thing about doing understanding users, right? You don't want to ask them questions that are too abstract. You want to ask them simple and direct questions, easy to understand. Make as if you are asking these questions to a child that's in class 5, right? Don't use big grammar. That's the thing about users. We should not assume that users understand big English. To be honest, sometimes when people see a lot of grammar, they just get confused and they'll just abandon your survey, right? So, for example, somebody is browsing his or her Facebook, right? And on a group, he receives a WhatsApp message on a group that, okay, hey guys, I'm trying to build this thing. Can you take 5 minutes of your time to answer me these questions? And they open your Google form where let's say you use Google form to do that survey or that interview. And your first question is big English, big grammar. Then they read this, they will try, they go to the second question, they're not still understanding. Normally what they'll do that they'll close it and they'll continue browsing their Facebook, right? So when we're trying to do user interviews or especially questionnaires, our questions to be simple English, direct, right? We should not overstress it, whether it's English or French. Very, very plain grammar. Step two is us defining the problem, right? Now, after you have gathered or you have done your interviews with users, right? You have this data from the surveys and from the interview that you have done. Now you have to now define a problem, right? Now, based on that data, you have this much data from the user surveys that you have done, right? You have interviewed, let me say, 10 to 15 people. You have responses from Google Forms that you have dropped on different groups and people have filled. Now, when you're trying to synthesize that data, to define the problem that you're trying to solve. You already have the problem in your head, but what you are doing here is to see if that problem, the data that you have from understanding your users matches or is closer to the problem that you really have in your head, right? Now, when you are looking at that data, you have to focus on pain points of the users, right? Not assumptions. You have to focus on their pain points. Like this person is telling that, oh, I tried to use this app, but I could not do it because this thing happened. That's a pain point that that they're having. Like Fire said that he was using SAF AI, but because what is his pain point there? He says maybe he was trying to do something, or he was trying to run a command, he was trying to give a prompt and it did not work. So his pain point is that some functionalities are not working. The other person says that, okay, Grok AI. He's looking at the responses that he's getting from Grok AI, and also at the responses that he's getting from ChatGPT and Gemini. He's saying that, okay, his pain point is that Grok AI is not giving him like enough data that he really wants. That's a pain point, right? That's a pain point. So you are looking at those pain points of based on the responses that the users have given you. You are looking at their pain points. You are looking at the things that really is paining them inside to see that, okay, this is the actual problem, and then you can now start solving that problem. So, for example, I use an example here of of freelancers, and almost of what come on are doing freelancing, and we often try to send invoice to our customers, right? Now, what if a freelancer tells me that, okay, I want to send invoices to my customers in less than 2 minutes, because I feel like me using spreadsheet will take most of my time. Let's just say that's an example, right? That's just something that's just coming off my head. I've gone and interviewed, I've sent survey forms and I've interviewed people that I think that most of them are freelancers, right? They have filled the form and I have that data in front of me, and I'm looking at it, I'm trying to define my problem. The the main focus of this stage, defining a problem, is to come up with what we call a problem statement. In UX, we call it a problem statement. So a problem statement is what will now make you to start developing solutions to that problem that you want to solve. So you are looking at the data that you have gotten from understanding your users, and now at this stage, you want to really define that problem. You already have the problem in your head, but you still want to define it based on the data that you have gotten from users. Remember, we're doing UX, right? We're not assuming here. We're doing UX. It means that everything that we're doing here is coming from the users. So we want to focus on their pain point. We also want to empathize with the users, right? Empathy. So especially sorry, when you are doing these things, right? You want to see the emotional side of the users. So if you are doing a one-on-one survey, or sorry, interview with somebody, right? You want to catch an expression. Somebody say, like what um Fire said, he feels frustrated because he wanted to do something with this AI tool and it was not working. When he wrote that statement, I can see, I can feel like, okay, this guy is really emotional, but this thing is really paining him, right? So you want to catch that. Sometimes when we're doing, especially one-on-one interviews, when people talk, you have to listen to what they quote, listen to what they say, right? That now we also help us in defining the problem. Now, we also have to focus on the core problem, right? So, like I said, my example here is um, freelancers trying to send invoice to their customers. We want to build a simple MVP. That MVP is that this freelancer, they want to be able to just log into that platform and they should be able to send an invoice. We're not building an accounting platform for them, right? We're not building my accounting platform for them. We're building a simple feature. I log into this platform, I get my client, I input the details on the invoice, and I send and they receive, and that is it. So when we're trying to define the problem, we should look at the core problem. What is it that we want to solve? You want to, for example, fitness. We're trying to build an app for fitness. What is it that is making people not to go out, not to take their fitness serious? Somebody can be say, I do work out in the house, or I do work out in the gym. What's making me not to go to the gym? What's making me to do my workout in the house just once a while, just once a week? I plan to do it twice a week. We are looking at those kind of core problems to actually define the problem. That's going to help us to build our MVP.
So what
Yes,
if
yes,
what
Axel.
if what if upon synthesizing the information and the data you got from the users, there is more than one core problem,
Yeah.
or there is the core problem is much bigger than you expected, having different facets to it. What do you do? Do you just double down on one little thing, like you said there? How do
Okay.
you handle a situation where there's maybe more than one core problem?
Okay. Now, if there's more than one core problem, right? So you have to look at the frequency in which that particular problem has occurred. So you have a data. You have, let's say, you have 20 people that you have interviewed, that you have their data from them, right? And inside that 20 people, you have different problems that you have realized. But now you realize that okay, this particular problem is recurring. If that particular problem has recurred more than one time, one, two, three, four, five, or six to 15 people, you are realizing that that particular problem is recurring, then that's the problem that you want to solve, right? So at this point in time, you have to look at the frequency in which that particular core problem has occurred. Normally, there'll be other problems that you see from the data that you have. But now, if this particular problem has occurred more than once, twice, three, four, and you are seeing that the frequency is really high, they say, okay, this is the particular problem I want to solve. Now, the other problems will come in the future. They can become like features that you are going to add to your MVP. Remember, we're trying to build an MVP, like the minimum viable product. What is it that people easily use? So if you realize that this problem has if the frequency is high, then it means that's the MVP that I want to build, because this is what people are going to use, because you realize that this is the problem that most people are facing. If you go and take another problem, which is that you have realized, but not so many people related to it, yeah, you are going to have a few that are going to use it, but now you don't really have a market fit for it, right? So for to answer your question, look at the frequency in which that problem has the frequency in which how many people are facing that same problem on the data that you have. If you realize that you have the majority of people facing that problem, then you can go ahead and start solving it. Like I said, the other problems can still come into that particular MVP that you're building in the future. They can come in as features that you add to the solution that you're building. The success rate of an MVP. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
when you launch your MVP, right? The
Yeah.
success rate is the number of people. You have your goal that you measure. How many, for example, if it's a sign up, right? How many people have signed up? How many people have demonstrated interest to use this? How many people actually created their accounts? How many people succeeded to send a message? How many people? So you have metrics that you have put, right? Depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, I'll take the example of, if, like I said, Monte Hub, they just launched Startup Cameroon, and their entrepreneurs now filling the form, like submitting their data. At the end of the campaign that Monte Hub has done, they will sit down, look at the metrics, look at the submissions. They say, okay, we have like 100 startups that have demonstrated interest, that they have submitted their information to this platform. And in one of look at that, okay, if 100 people is the KPI that they have set, then they'll go ahead and start building the platform. If 100 people, 100 startup does not meet their KPIs, then maybe they can abandon the project, or they'll do something else, right?
Yeah.
So you have to always know what you want from your MVP. So like I
Yeah.
said, their users are going to tell you if your MVP is good or not. So that's how you measure your success rate of your MVP. We're on the stage of creating a problem statement. So in UX, we are creating a problem statement. It always has this framework that it follows, right? You start with the user, what they want, and why they want it, right? So based on, like I said, we are still defining the problem statement based on the data that we have from the surveys that and the interviews that we've done with all our users. So how do we create a problem statement? So the problem statement has a framework that we follow to do it. Excuse. Who is your user? What they need? What do they want to do? And why do they want to do it? So if you look at my example here, I say freelancers need a way. My users are all freelancers. What do they need? They need a way to send invoices quickly because they waste time with manual spreadsheets, right? So you define the who, the what, and the why. So in your problem statement, you have to have the who is the user, the what do they want to do, and the why do they want to do what they want to do. If you put your problem statement inside this, then you have like a nice problem statement, which now you can move to the next stage, which is you start bringing out ideas to solve this problem. Now, when you have this problem statement, you always have to check it with your initial problem that you're trying to solve, right? It might fall to be the same, it might be similar, it might be apart, but it's going to give you a clue on what to do next. Now, sometimes here, even at this problem statement, you realize that okay, maybe this my problem that I even want to solve is not really a problem. It's not really an application that I need to build. Does not need me to build anything. Maybe it just need me to go and do the one community service somewhere. So this particular stage of you creating a problem statement can really inform you on the kind of solution that you want to build. Is my solution going to be a digital solution? Or is it something that I need to do by community service, right? Sometimes we really have to be direct and factual with ourselves. This problem that we want to solve doesn't really need technology to be solved, or it's a problem that they need me to go and open an NGO to solve it. Right. So that's why a problem statement helps you to understand the pain point of the users, and now you start generating the kind of solutions to solve this problem, to solve the problem statement. So there are different deliverables on that particular stage of defining the problem, right, in UX. Like we have different deliverables. The empathy map capture what the users think, what they say, and what they do. All of these things that they are seeing here comes from the data that you have after when you're interviewing the users, when you're understanding them, right? So remember, like I said, each stage fits the next stage. You don't fabricate one stage, right? You don't put things in this stage. All of these things that you are seeing here, empathy map, user persona, problem statement, journey map, success metrics, comes from the data that we have from understanding the users, right? But the most important thing here at this stage is a problem statement, right? When you have your problem statement, then you can move ahead. The other ones, empathy map, you can do it. If you have a UX designer in your team, then they can do an empathy map to see how it really aligns with your problem statement. But the most important two here is the problem statement and the user persona. User persona is just the person that you're trying to build this product for. Who is this person? What do they do? What are their activities? And that is it. Like for example, you look at my persona here. Sam, a graphic designer who works with 8 to 10 clients monthly. And Sam wants to do what? He wants to send invoices to these 8 to 10 clients without in less than 2 minutes. So that's what he wants to do. So let's focus on the problem statement here when we're on this stage of defining the problem. Okay. So after we define a problem, now we'll now move to ideation. So ideation is where we start brainstorming on the different kind of solution that we can use to solve the problem that we have already, the problem statement. And now this is when now you really define your MVP scope. Because it's at this stage where most people get confused, right? You have the problem statement now. Now you're brainstorming, you have a lot of solutions, you have a lot of features that you think that can help to solve that problem. Now you really have to streamline this your solution, these solutions to build the first one to the market. Now you have to use what we call divergent thinking, right? So explore as many potential solutions as possible. Then now excuse You start narrowing down the solutions to the ones that you think that this particular solution can solve this problem at this time and people will want it, right? So you brainstorm on so many different potential solutions to solve that problem that you already have, right? Now, when you have these divergent solutions, now you also have to look at the feasibility and how desirable they are. Feasibility means that is this something that I can actually build it? This is my solution that I want to use to solve this problem. Can it be built? I have to speak to my engineer. Is this thing feasible? Do we have the resources to build it? Right? This solution, are people going to want it? Right? Are users going to want it? That's how we start knowing if it's desirable, right? Now, there's one thing that we need to do. We also have to prioritize our solution because at this stage, like I said, you are just brainstorming, you are thinking of different solutions to the problem that you have. And when you have these so many ideas or ways or solutions to solve that problem, you have to start narrowing it down to solve the core problem. That's why we call it prioritization. So focus on solving the core problem first. Remember, you already have the core problem, and then you have different solutions in your head, right? Remember, my core problem here was that this freelancer wants to send an invoice. So my what I'll prioritize here is that what quick invoice creation over custom branding. So my user just want to create an invoice and send to the user. He doesn't care about to add um if the user works for this company or that company. Let me be adding the color of that client's company to the invoice. No, at this point in time, he just want to create the invoice with his company with his freelancer name on it, his client's name, the amount, and send, and the person receives and they pay him, and that's it. Him to customize that invoice will be a feature that will come in the future. Not It's not necessary now in this MVP, right? Remember, we're thinking about the MVP. We're not building the full-fledged invoicing platform yet or an accounting platform. And we also have to do lean thinking. So we build the smallest version that delivers value and we test it early. So based on all the nice solutions and ideas that we have brainstormed and we now it down to the core problem and we build a version that is fast to develop and we send it out there for testing, right? So okay, this stage there's a method that you can use, right, to actually categorize your ideas. We call it the Moscow method. Moscow method is must have, should have, could have, and won't have, right? We call it the Moscow method. So you have your different solutions. You have like let me say 20 solutions to solve that problem. Now you have to really take your time together with your team. You guys categorize your solutions into must have. Must have means that you really this your MVP must have this because this is the one that is solving a problem of the users, right? Should have is important. Maybe we could have it on this MVP, we could not have it, right? Could have is a nice to have, right? We all know what nice to have is. Won't have it means that we can implement it maybe in the future, but we are not implementing that right now, right? So that's what we call the Moscow method. So you draw your quadrant in four pieces like this, and you put your different solutions. So for must have, I have quick invoice creation form templates, send invoices via email in one click, automatic invoice numbering. Like, okay, yeah, when you go and buy in a store and they always have like receipt numbers and all the stuff. So those are my must have. My should have should be a basic dashboard of sent and paid invoices, a PDF export for the invoices and payment status tracking. Then my could have is an online payment link in the invoice, multi-currency support. Then my won't have is recurring invoice scheduling. So for my MVP, I want to build an invoice creation form template. So the person should just go there, choose a template, create their invoice, and they send. They send the invoice in one click through an email, and the invoice should have my system to automatically create numbers for the invoice. So invoice number one, invoice number two, or invoice number three, as we keep sending it. So that is how I use the Moscow method to categorize my solutions here. So the Moscow method helps us to adjust our solutions, right? Must have, should have, could have, and won't have. So arrange our solutions like this, then we can start deciding on, we'll pick the ones to build, we'll start building and shipping out there. Okay, let's move to the next. All right, so after we've chosen our solution, right, we'll now move to the next stage in the UX design, which is prototyping. Now, I know most of us are designers or developers who really know more about this stage, prototyping, where you either sketch or you do a design on Figma, you prototype it, right? And you can also test it, right? One thing that we fail to do as startup is that when we prototype, we don't test. We just send it straight to development for our developers to start coding. But one thing that we should not miss at this point is that even if it's a sketch or a wireframe or a Figma prototype that I've done, send it out there for somebody to use it, right? The same people that you use, that you interview them, just send a clickable link to them. Okay, hey, I've built this platform, or I'm trying to build this platform. This is a design. This is a clickable prototype. Just use it and give me feedback, right? Maybe 5 to 10 persons they give you feedback. You see, you collect like usable issues before you even start writing code. But what most teams do is that they only want to test their solution when they have coded, when the code has been written. No, we want to start testing even when it's in the design stage, and that's the use of UX here, right? When you design, you prototype, whether it's a sketch, a wireframe, or a high fidelity prototype, send it out there for testing. When you test it, you have feedback, valuable feedback, you iterate, you design. Before now, you can now move now to the developer to start working on it, start writing code, right? And this is a fundamental part of UX. It really helps us, especially when we're building MVPs, right? Because you don't have a lot of resources. You don't want to go and pay a developer to come and start writing code for something that will not work, right? You want to catch the errors at this stage, right? For example, this is just a prototype that I did. I can take this and send it to a friend and look at this screen. What do you think about it? Is it easy for you to send an invoice based on the job that you see here? They look at it, they try to use it, they give me their feedback, I iterate, I implement, then I can get somebody to start writing code. In that case, another at least I've caught some usability issues. So if there's something, if the button or something that was not working, then I will know that okay, this part is not working, this is not working, right? So during prototyping, we should always test. We should always test our designs. Let's not wait, let's not send our designs to development. Then when development is done, before now we move to testing. And here you have it, testing. Step 5 is testing. Test early as possible. Start testing from your design. You test when you are done, when the developers are done working on it, and when you send it out there, you will get feedback, and you iterate, then you implement again in your design, or implement in the code that you're writing, right? So testing is very important when we're building MVPs, because you don't want to build an MVP and send it out there, then people don't use it. So in testing, there's what we call usability testing. So usability testing is that you actually take, maybe it's your Figma file or your Figma prototype, or the app that you have already coded that's running, and you invite 5 to 10 people, or you go and meet them, just give them, hey, I'm building this thing, please, can you use it for me? And you watch them actually use it, right? Tell them that this app is for you to send an invoice to your client as a freelancer. So as a freelancer, how can you as a freelancer, how can you is how easy is it for you to use this my platform to send an invoice? When you send it to them and they are using it, you observe them, right? You look at what they are doing. Maybe you can even plead with them, hey, please can you record your screen for me so that you can go later on and watch the video so that you catch the pinpoint on what on how they're using it. There you get to catch issues that you never thought that those issues will arise. Then now you can go and iterate, brainstorm, and you have solutions to them. You even realize that the issues that they'll be facing, you already have solutions to them on your ideation phase, right? So we always have to test. Most of the time, most teams miss out on testing. So you just think that they design, they build, and they send it other people start using it. Test it internally. Even you just friends or family members, just give them to use it. Most of the time we get valuable feedback from people that don't even know anything about what we're building, right? We get valuable feedback from people that know nothing. Just send it to them. Try to use this thing and give me feedback. Because the truth is the people that the users that we're building, we don't know them, right? You are not in their daily routine. They're in their own end, you are in your own end, but you're building an application for them to use. So that's how we should be thinking. We should always test. Um, okay. So I guess okay. So testing is always the last part in the UX process when building MVP. So when you reach at testing, right, you take the findings in testing. You go back from the beginning, right? Like I said, it's not a straight line process. It's a circle. It's in a circle. You get your feedback from here. You brainstorm on it. You have different solutions. You have different ideas. You implement. You even realize that some of the problems that their users are telling you when they are using an MVP, some of them you have solutions to them. Some of them you don't have, right? So the ones that you have solutions to them, you implement. The one that you don't have, you brainstorm and you generate new ideas. You implement, and the cycle continues. Right. So common mistakes that we always do when we are doing MVPs, that we are building too many features, right? We want to build everything, especially when we brainstorm. We have a lot of beautiful, nice features in our head that we think that this is the next big thing. But an MVP is, like I said, the simplest form of the solution that you're building that you want people to use. Another mistake is that we skip user research. User research is the way you understand your users. That's why I say that most team always want to skip this stage, because actually this user research stage is boring. This is the most boring part in the UX process. You doing user research is the most boring, but it's the most critical part in any in any development process. And most teams always try to skip. No, we should not skip user research. Like that's the most critical part in when we're building MVPs. It's not just an issue of us building MVPs, but when we're building any product. Another mistake is that what not testing before launch. Like I said, most teams don't test. They just launch. Immediately they're done building, what they launch. No. Before you launch, you test it. That's why on if you want to launch an app on Play Store or App Store, there's what we call beta, right? Those of us that are developers, we have beta testing. You invite a small group of people through their emails and you tell them to test it for you, to use their application for you, and they give you feedback. When they give you feedback now, you implement the feedback, then now you can open it now to the wider public for people to start using it. We should not skip testing. Like this two in the middle like this, user research and testing. We should never skip it. That's very important. And most teams always ignore feedback. Like you send your application out there for test, people have tested it and are giving you feedback. Remember, feedback is not always positive. Oh. When you send your your solution out there to use, don't just be waiting that people say, "Oh, it's nice app. I'm going to use it." If you get only positive feedback, then there's a problem with that solution. You have to be ready for all kinds of feedback. There are people that will even tell you trash. You might even think of shutting it down because of a feedback that somebody has given you. No, just receive the feedback, positively. So you are receiving negative feedback positively. Look into the feedback, pick what you can pick from there, and iterate and continue, right? So don't ignore feedback when users give you feedback, right? Always receive that feedback and iterate on it.